Hey, good morning, everyone. We are not going to have all staff in person today. We are currently in an influenza A outbreak. We have 3 residents who have been confirmed with influenza A. But we still want to make sure that we covered the policies and trainings that we wanted to do. We want to review abuse and also resident rights. We're also in a complaint survey currently. This is the third day of the complaint survey. Um, they're operating remote today. Again, just looking at complaints for 37 potential citations, it seems to be going pretty well. That's the importance of documenting. Document, document, document. We know that we have some opportunities with our challenging, opportune-filled residents, and I can assure you that the state is looking at our documentation, and they are our documentation, especially with like room 301 or 201 or 304. That doesn't excuse it. It still means that we have to follow up. This also gets into abuse, grievance process, and all of that in between. So we just want to make sure that we were covering that. We are also in our window for our annual survey. That can be happening at any time. Um, I anticipate that it'll be the end of February or the beginning of March that we will go into our annual survey. So we're making great preparations right now. We're doing our abacus interviews. We're doing our ambassador rounds. Um, we have a new AIT, Josh Lowe, who is working on abacus. And so if he brings up something that he sees something or identifies something as it relates to the resident or the resident room, we ask that you please make those corrections. So let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen from here, and we are going to talk about resident rights. So resident rights policy, this is federal and state guarantee certain basic rights for all residents living in this facility. The rights include, but are not limited to, a dignified existence, to be treated with respect, kindness, and dignity. Dignity is a very key word because you get into customer service, dignity, and then if you're not providing good customer service and if you're not treating people with integrity and dignity, that can also get into the realm of neglect. So we need to be very mindful of that. They have the right to be free from abuse, neglect, misappropriation of property, and exploitation, be free from corporal punishment or involuntary seclusion and physical or chemical restraints not required to treat the resident's symptoms, self-determination, communication with and access to people and services both inside and outside the facility, exercise his or her rights as a resident of the facility and as a resident or citizen of the United States, be supported by the facility in exercising his or her rights, exercise her rights without interference, coercion, discrimination, or reprisal from the facility. That includes that if someone makes a complaint, for example, they didn't get a shower and your supervisor comes and talks to you about why didn't that shower get completed because the resident brought it up, and then you go back to the resident and you tell the resident that, hey, I just got in trouble because you told them I didn't get a shower, are you sure you didn't forget? That could be considered to be coercion, and it could also be retaliatory. So we got to be very mindful of that. The residents should not be hearing about our woes, should not be hearing about any of those things, because that's part of their residents' rights. Be informed about his or her rights and responsibilities. They have the right to appoint a legal representative of his or her choice in accordance with the state law. They have the right to revoke the delegation of a legal representative in accordance with state law. That would be power of attorney. If it was regarding guardianship, they'd have to go through the courts in order to do that. Exercise rights not delegated to a legal representative. Have his or her same-sex spouse, if applicable, afforded treatment equal to that or an opposite-sex spouse. Be notified of his or her medical condition of any changes in his or her condition, which means that we just have to report to them what's going on. If there's a medication change, If there's a treatment change, they have the right to be informed about that. It's not we're just informing each other. We're also need to make sure that we're circling back and informing the resident themselves as well. Be informed of participate in his or her own care planning and treatment. Access personal and medical records pertaining to him or herself. Avamere, we have a process. We give in 72 hours. There is a form that needs to be filled out, but we do ask that that form be completed. Manage his or her personal funds or have the facility manage his or her funds if he or she wishes. Choose an attending physician and participate in decision making regarding his or her care. Privacy and confidentiality. Voice grievances to the facility or other agency that hear grievances without discrimination or reprisal and without fear of discrimination or reprisal. So again, there's that discrimination. And then also regarding retaliation as well. Have the facility respond to his or her grievances. Examine survey results. So we have a survey book. And not only that we have a survey book, we also have facility self-assessment that is up at the front with our staffing plan as well. Communicate with outside agencies, example, local, state, federal officials, state and federal surveyors, long-term care ombudsman. By the way, Colleen is no longer our ombudsman, so we are not assigned an ombudsman at this time. So we're currently working with the deputy ombudsman, and her name is Steph Delage. Perform services for the facility if he or she chooses or refuses to perform services for the facility. That means they have the right to refuse treatment. Visit and be visited by others from outside the facility. Be informed of safety or clinical and restrictions or limitations of visitation. Access to a telephone, mail, and email. Communicate in person by mail, email, and telephone with privacy. Retain the use of personal possessions to maximum extent that safe and safety permit. We already know in this environment, safety is going to get in the way of independence. That just needs to be communicated. Share a room with a spouse if that is a mutually agreeable. We haven't had one of those scenarios come up, but if it did come up, we would certainly take a look at it. Share a room with his or her roommate of choice when practicable. Both residents live in the same facility and both residents agree. Self-administer medication, the interdisciplinary care planning team determines it is safe. So that means that we would have to do a self-administration medication. We'd have to care plan it. And this is also counts for residents that we are sending out when they go out on leave or even out for an outing. They have to be able to self-administer the medication. So they have to do the self-administer medication assessment and care plan. Also, when residents are going out, they have the right to go out. We just have to care plan them as such because we have to we run the risk of elopement regarding risk. Refuse a transfer from a distinct part within the institution, equal access to quality care regardless of source and payment. Copy of residents' rights are posted throughout the facility. They're also giving one at the time of admit. And the unauthorized release, access, disclosure of resident information is prohibited. That would be protected health information. That's one of the reasons why we send out emails. We follow HIPAA, which is Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, which was created in 1996. We also encrypt our emails. We secure our emails by encrypting. We just got to make sure that we don't leave screens open because any resident can gain access to that as well. And then obviously when we're in the building too, we need to make sure that we're using our inside voice because we know our voices travel and there may be another resident that might be listening to another person's care. Orientation and service training programs are conducted quarterly to assist our employees in understanding these resident rights. Inquiries concerning resident rights should be referred to the social services director. We actually do not have a social services director, but we have 3 coordinators. So there we go, 3 coordinators. We have Tanya Shumway, who we share with Pearl. We have Susie Wise in the new edition that started last week. That is Cody Brown is the new social services coordinator. So we have 3 that are in that department. So regarding abuse training. So abuse training. Definition of abuse. The definition of abuse is defined as the willful infliction of injury, unreasonable confinement, intimidation, or punishment with resulting physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. Abuse also includes the deprivation of an individual, including a caretaker, of goods or services that are necessary to attain or maintain physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being. Instances of abuse of all residents, irrespective of any mental or physical condition, cause physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. It includes verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, including abuse facilitated or enabled through the use of technology. Examples include, but not limited to, any physical injury to a resident which has been caused by other than accidental means. This includes injuries that a reasonable and prudent person, that's the key, a reasonable and prudent person would have been able to prevent, such as hitting, pinching, striking, or injury resulting from rough handling. Failure to provide basic care or service to a resident which results in physical harm or unreasonable discomfort or serious loss of human dignity. Sexual contact, including fondling with a resident caused by an employee, agent, or other resident on a skilled nursing facility by force, threat, duress, coercion, or sexual contact where the resident has no ability to consent. Illegal or improper use of the resident resources for the personal profit or gain of another person, or borrowing resident funds, spending resident funds without the resident's consent, or if the resident is not capable of consenting. Spending the resident funds for items or services from which the resident cannot benefit or appreciate, or spending the resident's funds to acquire items for use in common areas when such purchase is not initiated by the resident. Verbal abuse, including the use of oral, written, or gestured communication to a resident or visitor that describes the residents in a disparaging or derogatory terms. That's based upon them, what they'd believe to be derogatory terms. Mental abuse, including humiliation, harassment, threats, punishment, intimidation, or deprivation directed toward the resident. Corporal punishment, abandonment, which means an action or inaction by a person or entity with the duty to care of a vulnerable adult that leaves the adult without means or ability to obtain necessary food, shelter, clothing, or health care. Exploitation or misappropriation of residents' property, taking or distributing photographs or recordings of residents and posting through social media or multimedia messaging. Alleged violations is a situation or occurrence that is observed or reported by staff, residents, relative, visitors, or another healthcare provider or others, but has not been investigated, and if verified, could be noncompliance with federal requirements related to mistreatment, exploitation, neglect, or abuse, including injuries of unknown source and misappropriation of property. The covered individual is anyone who is an owner, operator, employee, manager, agent, or the contractor facility. Injuries of an unknown source. This has to be reported immediately. Again, we have how many hours to report abuse if we cannot rule it out? The answer to that is 2 hours. And then we have 5 days, 5 days. So if we have an event, a sentinel event, which requires an adverse event to be reported, that could be a stage 3 for wound care. It can be an injury of unknown cause. It can be an elopement. These are the things that we are absolutely training on right now. But if it's an injury of an unknown source, the source of the injury was not observed by any person. The source of the injury could not be explained by resident. The injury is suspicious because of the extent of the injury or the location of the injury. Example, the injury is located in an area not generally vulnerable to trauma, or number of injuries observed at one particular point in the time of incident or injuries over time. So if we identify something, and this gets into our flow sheet. So this would be the process, reporting and investigation of incident. So if there's a discovery of incident, the first thing that we would need to do is immediately treat the injury or adverse effect to the resident, protect residents from further harm, implement interventions as appropriate. We would then open up a risk management depending upon what the event was. So we would then open up a risk management and we would document what we did, what we utilized as an intervention, and how we were able to keep that resident safe. So if it is suspected abuse, physical, sexual, verbal, or mental abuse, neglect or care, involuntary seclusion, corporal punishment, illegal or improper use of resident resources, report immediately to APS. That actually would go to the facility report of incidents. That goes to FRI. And then if it is a crime, then we would also report it to law enforcement. That would not be police non-emergent, that would be 911. We would then investigate. So that's where the risk management comes in. And when we complete risk managements, it does require witnesses, minimum of 2. But if we have something abuse, so let's say, for example, the resident is reporting that a CNA or a nurse, or it could even be a housekeeper that hit them, well, then we would have to then go through the entire house and we interview the entire house, because that person could have potentially been through the entire building. And what we're doing is that we're just seeing whether or not any other residents have been inflicted. Investigate. We would find out the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We would report the results of the investigation to the FRI facility report of incidents. This goes to the state, and document and implement ongoing preventive measures. So if it's a physical injury of unknown cause, investigate immediately. We again would report it to the facility report of incident. If we were able to rule it out, we'd still document, always document, document, document. So that is resident rights and report of abuse. Some other updates I'd like to talk to you about. We just got notification from the home office. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. So we just got report from the home office just the other day. We were thinking that retro pay for union was going to happen on the 10th. They said that it has been delayed, so retro pay will be on January 25th, retro pay, so you will not see it on this go around. Really, really important. Make sure that you are punching out for lunch. That is a requirement. That is a Bureau of Labor and Industry requirement. And for some reason, if you are not able to punch out for lunch, you do need to check in with your supervisor. So if you are a CNA, that would mean that you check in with your lead nurse. Another thing that we're seeing currently on the floor, and I recognize everybody has a lot going on in their life right now. And I know that the ultimate goal is to not bring it into the facility. It's almost impossible to do so. We have so many people that are currently on leave of absence, family medical leave, just a lot that's still popping right now. So I get it. And I understand that things are they can be tense. Um, but we still have to maintain professionalism. And we've had a few episodes as of late where people have been yelling in the workplace. And we just want to let you know that yelling in the workplace can be considered to be a hostile work environment. And this was reported to us the other day by some family members. So I want to let you know that it's not just your lead nurses, it's not just your managers, it's not just your family members, it's not just the residents. All of those people are paying attention and our residents are alert and oriented, and all of them have phones, and believe me, all of them have emails too, and they have our email addresses as well. So we come in and there is a concern. Our immediate response is to investigate it, whether it be a grievance, concern, missing or lost item. So please maintain professionalism in the workplace. And if you're not maintaining professionalism in the workplace and you're yelling in the workplace, that's actually a termable event. So please don't be that person because you're upset for whatever reason and yell at another staff member that is here in the building. That is not something that is going to be tolerated. We do have a perfect attendance contest coming up in February. I know February is going to be a short month. So make sure that you're punching in and making sure that you're here on time and no absences. And if that is the case, we are going to be giving away an Apple Watch. So for our employee anniversaries, so the anniversaries that we have for the month of January 2025, by the way, Happy New Year's. And this building's come a long way. And it's come a long way because of the people that are still here that have maintained the course. And that first person goes out to an anniversary would be Aaron Ote, who's been here for 8 years. Jeff Wilson has been here for 3 years. And then we have Morgan Palm, who has been here for 1 year. Employee birthdays, we have in the month of January, we have Denise O'Brien, we have Pauline Kozachev, Norma Yoakum, Amanda McCauley, Sadie Garcia, Stephanie Salmon, and Joni Fugate. The shining star, the shining star, the shining star for the month of January. This is the person that was selected by our residents. And that person selected for the residents, this isn't the first time this person has received this award, but this is obviously an indication that the residents know that this person is going to meet their needs, take care of them, and do it with a smile on their face, not only a smile on their face, but also a smile on their heart. And that goes out to Yolanda Gomez. I know you can't see it because it's backwards, but it's Yolanda Gomez. So the employee of the month for the month of January goes out to someone who is a huge advocate for a building, for our residents, and has some amazing ideas. We're not always able to operate under those ideas, but we certainly do look at those ideas and just the advocacy. She's amazing when it comes to an advocate. And, if you happen to work on PM shift or night shift, then you've probably tasted some of her amazing cooking. And that goes out to the employee of the month for the month of January of 2025 to kick it off in the new year is Erin Ote. So Erin, congratulations on being the January 2025 employee of the month. Again, I just want to reiterate that we are in our survey window, so I would anticipate that we would have survey a month to a month and a half from now. We should always be survey ready. Document, 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 um, document, educate, and document. All right. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful and happy new year. And we will see you out there on the floor. Bye now.